The Schwimmwagen is one of the most produced amphibious vehicles of all time, and even though it wasn't very successful during World War II, it's certainly a fan favourite at Oz Armour Fest. Our one's been having a bit of engine trouble lately, but luckily our mechanic Steve is up to the challenge. Hi, I'm Kurt from Oz Armour, and welcome to Workshop Wednesday.
I've been really looking forward to getting my greasy mitts on this thing, a genuine World War II Schwimmwagen, so I've dragged it back to my lair because it's not running and its main problem is it's not starting. I think you and I would love to be able to take it swimming, but I think we'd probably need permission from the owner of the museum because I don't think we really would be too popular if we managed to sink the thing. Apparently it had a freeboard, so distance from sort of disaster to everything okay of about 150 millimetres, so I guess the water would be somewhere up on here. You drive the thing down into the water and you've got an assistant in the back here that uses this contraption here to actually push this down so that it engages with the drive system. From what I can work out, you can only really use the prop system with the transmission in neutral. Pretty standard VW engine. This is the crankshaft off the back of the engine, and so there's a drive coupling here, and when this is down, it meshes together, which creates a connection via this rubber coupling here directly onto the crankshaft of the engine. Whatever they do with the accelerator is what is translated. So to go faster, you just give the engine more rev, slower, less.
That is the jankiest, most simple thing.
I could be wrong, but I don't see any other way of locking the thing down, unless there's something I'm missing here. But, you know, maybe people that have more experience than what we do will be able to point out in the comments to tell us the error of our ways. If you think about this, this is basically like a VW inside a bathtub. This is how they managed to make it waterproof so that it can go through river crossings and things like that. The outer part of the hull is sealed, so getting access to some of the drive components is not like a normal VW. So they put in the seats, very simple to get out. You can see quite clearly the rubber seals, which is sealing the transmission and differential assembly from the outer hull. And you can also see, which is something that I've never seen before with a VW Beetle, this is how the four-wheel drive system works. So sitting on the back of the transmission is like a adapter piece that the drive shaft that takes the drive to the front sits on, and then you've got your selector mechanism for both the gear shift and also whether you want four-wheel drive, two-wheel drive or nothing at all. So that's quite clever as well too. So no doors obviously because they're not terribly waterproof. So instead you've got this
Oh, no way.
nice little ladder. All the German sort of light duty vehicles have this type of ignition key in them. The Kettenkrad inside the museum, the Zundap motorcycle, plus all the other, the Steyr and stuff all have this same profile key, which I guess makes sense because if the Soviets are coming, you don't want to be looking around for keys. Who's got the keys?
Just give me that one.
So anyone familiar with a VW Bug will recognise this stuff instantly, but what you wouldn't recognise is the fact that there's a front differential sitting in here with the two drive shafts taking drive to the front wheel. So that's how it does the four-wheel drive. I can only imagine what this thing would have been like off-road, being so light. I think it's probably 400 kilos or less than 500 kilos, so it must have been tremendous off-road. Any internal combustion engine, petrol engine, you obviously need, mechanically the engine's got to turn over, make compression. Second thing is you've got to have the ignition system working, and then the third thing, the carburetor needs to be approximately mixing the right amount of fuel with the air. Yeah, electrical system, first to check to make sure that there's battery voltage at the ignition coil. So, okay, so I'm testing the terminal. I can see that we've got battery voltage there. It's reading 11.78. Next thing is to make sure that the contact points are working. This is a real lesson in antiques, because I don't think there's probably really an engine that's made anymore that comes out with contact points inside a distributor. So it's really a lost art. I had to remember how to do all this stuff. When the engine is rotating, this switch is opening and closing, and this is what's charging the ignition coil and is what fires the spark plug. So the points have to be set so that they open and close solidly, and the gap is correct between it. I open and close the points. Can you see them? You're getting a bit of a spark from it. So that means that power at the coil, you've got connection through to the points and the condenser on the distributor. So the next thing I need to check is to make sure that the gap or the setting of the points is correct. Close. So this is where the high voltage comes out of the ignition coil, goes through the centre pin, through this contact here, and as long as the rotor button is pointing at the cylinder at the right time, the spark will travel into the pin, through the wire to the spark plug, and then it lights off the engine. It's pretty magical, huh?
Yeah.
So I'll pull a couple of the spark plugs out. So here's the spark plug. All things considered, it doesn't look too bad. What I'll do next is do a spark test to make sure that there's actually spark getting to the plugs. I'll crank the starter motor, keep holding on the rubber part, keep that against the body. Normally I would ask Jesse or Bo from the workshop to come and hold the spark plug.
Oh mate, Kurt from Armour's not afraid to get his hands dirty, put his life at risk. A little spark.
You saw a little spark?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's it. And you didn't jump this high in the ground.
My hair is still flat.
All that system's working, the spark plug wires are working, so it's got to be something to do with fuel. I've had the clamp off here and I can see that fuel is gravity feeding from the tank to here, so that's okay. The next thing is this device here, the fuel pump. So it's a mechanically driven fuel pump off the engine. So I'm going to disconnect the fuel line from here from the carburetor, and then we'll turn the engine over and see if there's fuel coming out to check the fuel pump. You right?
Yep.
Squirting fuel out?
Yes.
Okay. There you go. So the pump is working.
By process of elimination, that just leaves the carburetor to have something wrong with it.
Genuine voyage of discovery.
The big reveal.
Big reveal. Well, I can't tell anything from the outside, but I'm just laughing about the fact that I've got the entire carburetor in my hand, and the little screaming, I think it's a 1000cc engine or 1100cc engine, breathes through this tiny little hole.
It's so tiny.
Yes, it's a baby little engine. So we'll take it over and we'll start pulling it apart. Taking the top off the carburetor to reveal the sort of inner workings, so I'm being very careful not to break the gasket. Inside here is the float. This is what sets the level of the fuel in the carburetor. This little piece here is a venturi, and you can see how it's almost shaped like a nozzle on a rocket or something. When the engine is running, atmospheric pressure is pushing air through this venturi, and it creates a low pressure zone which sucks the fuel out of the float chamber, and that's what mixes the fuel with the air and makes it run. It's as simple as that. It's super simple. Yeah, okay. Maybe you can see it, but inside the float bowl there's some dirt. So I think that there's a blockage somewhere in here which is stopping the fuel from getting through. This thing that I took out of the top here is called a jet. Probably, maybe you can see through it. It's got a calibrated hole. It's got a number stamped on it which tells you the diameter of the hole. And this is what calibrates the amount of fuel and air can go through it. back in the days before laptops when you could tune stuff. This piece here has another calibrated jet built into it. So it's very restricted. That's given me an indicator that it could have a blockage in it. There is some crap in there, so I'll get some compressed air and blow that out. So now we know it's completely clear because I can blow compressed air through it. Might as well do this one while I'm at it. Through this little hole here is where the entire fuel supply for the engine goes through when it's idling. Small engine doesn't need much. This is a special solvent that's used for carburetor work because it's good at dissolving build-ups and gum and varnish and all that stuff. Reassembly begins.
What's that tab for?
It's like an identification, so it has a serial number on it, which should tell you things like the size of the jets inside and the calibration of it. I want to do a bit of a static test of the various systems on the carburetor before I put it back into the bug. So I've got the fuel pump running, pumping fuel into here because the first thing I want to test is to make sure that the float control, it's like the float in a toilet system or something like that, is working, and making sure that that's shutting off and it's not overfilling the carburetor with fuel. The next thing is there's an enrichment device that when I flip the throttle open, see all that fuel that's been spurting out? That's extra fuel that's put into the airstream because when you crack the throttle open, the engine can get a bit of a flat spot, so this helps stop that. Now I should be able to simulate actual airflow through the carburetor by blowing through the top with compressed air. So we'll give it a go and see if that actually works. I haven't tried it on this style of carburetor yet, so let's see if it'll work. When I move this around, you should be able to see a white mist coming out. Can you see it coming out? Through the centre, so it'll come out through the centre there. That's actually fuel that's being atomised and pulled out through the venturi.
Time to put it back in and test it out. The last thing we'll check is the fuel filter.
So by blowing back the reverse direction of flow, you can check to see if it's restricted or not. So there's a bit of restriction to it, but seeing as it's had all that crappy fuel through, we might as well put a new one on it. They're not expensive, it's good insurance. Yeah, spot on. Okay, so it's getting full throttle. I'm going to leave the air filter off for the moment just so I can listen to it working. Double check I've tightened everything, fuel connections, carburetor base, choke and accelerator. So we should be good to give it a go. unleashing the terrifying potential of the VW engine. Two basic settings for the carburetor now that I've put it back on. Firstly, it's the actual idle speed, so that's the RPM that the engine's turning over, because you can hear it sort of struggling a bit. It's a chugga, chugga, chugga. And then the other thing is the idle mixture, which is the amount of fuel that goes through that tiny little hole into the engine. So I'm going to adjust the idle mixture first. So you screw it in until the engine really starts to struggle. Oops, too far. Okay, so it's starting to struggle, and then adjust it out till it smooths out. And that's it. That's how you setting the idle mixture. I'm impressed. Okay, so we'll put the air filter back on. And we'll also give a demo of the prop system as well too, because I'm sure people will find that interesting. Couplings join directly to the back of the crankshaft, the crank pulley. So now, with this down in place, when I start the engine up, the propeller should be turning. How's that? How often do you get to see a propeller running on a Schwimmwagen?
How good is that, Steve?
Yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it?
She's
pretty
operational.
Cool. She's operational. We might be able to take it for a quick spin, huh? How about that?
Sounds good.
That'd be probably the best test.
What was that? Or was that someone else being silly?
Could be. Don't know. No, it's me. There's the horn button. Make sure we've got some brakes. Yeah.
What is going on? Oh no.
The horn's got stuck.
It's a horny Schwimmer. Oh no.
Of all the things that can happen.
Right.
There we go, I've disconnected it. I'll try again. Running beautifully, it's accelerating well, there's no flat spots, no hesitation. Oop. Runs into third gear really easily.
Oop.
Mostly.
The Schwimmwagen is running like a beauty. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode, but that's all we have time for. Join us next Wednesday for your weekly tank restoration fix. So until then, I'm Kurt from Oz Armour, and I'll see you on the next one.
Mission accomplished, Steve.
Can I do it again?
Again, at Oz Armour Fest.
Yeah.
Tickets selling fast.
To avoid disappointment. Book now. Permission to come ashore?
Yeah, permission granted.
Yeah,
That's
nice
how
one.
you fix a Schwimmwagen.
Yeah, how you get it running. It's a real peach, this thing. It's a real peach. Something different.